So hi everybody, as you understand I'm a political communication scholar, and talking about threats and how tunnels affect us or threaten us as human beings, we actually need to be exposed to that kind of information, and here the media comes into play. And of course different political actors have different goals, and they would want us to consume some types of information about those threats. So as we all basically know and heard, cognitive aspects actually play a crucial role in our lives today, especially during conflicts. And looking at the perceptions regarding the different political actors involved in a conflict and how they are perceived in the international arena, their image is becoming a salient aspect in conflicts today. So basically when we're thinking about conflicts, conflict hadn't changed. The nature of conflicts had remained or been the same for so many years. We can even go back to biblical days. People are fighting basically about the same things, ideologies, resources, and so on. But looking at the last couple of decades, we can see that the character of conflicts had changed dramatically. And I will talk a little bit about two aspects of change. The first one has to do with the actors involved in conflicts. We shifted from wars or conflicts that are somewhat equal in terms of the political actors involved in them to this disparity. Conflicts in which one of the actors is a non-state militarized political actor, and then on the other side usually we have still a state. So that's the major first shift I will talk about. And the second one has to do with transparency. Today, due to technological development, satellite television, internet, social media, smartphones, we're all not just exposed to a lot of information, we're actually flooded with information. We can't even control a lot of the information we're exposed to. And most conflicts today, so it creates different fighting zones, if you will, but most conflicts today, more than 50% of conflicts today occurs in that space. We call it the information space. It means that we're exposed to conflicts that are asymmetrical in their nature and that receive a lot of media coverage. And those conflicts are kind of different because it requires the political actors involved in those conflicts to behave differently. So basically when we think about asymmetry, we think that the states is the stronger adversary, and then there's a non-state actor that is not as strong militarily as the state actor. Basically, if I would ask you how long it would take this sumo fighter to crush this child, it will be seconds, minutes, depends on his morality maybe, but something prevents him from using his force, which is us. Basically, what would we think about him if he would actually use his force? A lot of things limits countries' abilities to actually achieve their goals. That is actually pretty much the same picture. Instead of the sumo fighter, we have a tank. The child remains a child. But when we think about those types of conflicts, in many cases, images play a crucial role. And one of the main reasons countries cannot use all of their military power is public opinion pressures. And when we're thinking about the image war, which is a salient aspect of today's conflict, those actually the smaller adversary or the less strong adversary militarily is the stronger adversary because they have a better story in many cases. So that's one thing I would like you to keep in mind. And when we're talking about this image war, it actually occurs, it has no geographical boundaries. Any one of us can open his Twitter or Facebook or whatever and receive information about distant conflicts. And this image war takes place in the military battlefield, in the international arena, and also in the home front, because we're talking about a battle of ideas and not just a military battle. And thinking about images, and I will take it to the tunnel or terror tunnel arena in a second, I want you to look at those images, which many of us are familiar with most of them. I want you to think about those pictures and the cognitive aspects or how they affect us. When we see something, we know that it's real. We sense it with our own senses. So we tend to trust it in a better way. And when we're thinking about good and bad in conflicts and being exposed to narratives and images and videos, especially moving images, they have a strong effect on our perception, on good and bad, on the different political actors involved in conflicts. And think about it in our reality of the deep fake news, and so on. I think we need to be more critical, but we still need to take into consideration the cognitive aspects of those images. Now, when I spoke about the image war, I implied that everybody wants to convince us that they're the just side, or win hearts and minds, as we used to say. Now, that's not the case for every political actor and not for every target audience. Maybe for the international arena or public opinion, we want to convince them that each side is the just side, even when we're talking about terror organizations to some extent. But when we're talking about our enemies, usually when we're talking about terror organizations, all they want to do is scare their target audience or enemy. So scholars following a series of terror attacks occurring in the 1970s had talked about the notion of the theater of terror. Terrorists actually produce events in order to capture as much attention as possible, and here media is their tool. Their casualties are important, but they're not really the important part. The important thing is to attract as much attention and to scare us. When we're talking about terror, or causing fear is the main aspect of terrorism, and we need to take that into consideration. I had a small picture of an ISIS terror event, if you will, here. They released a video a few years ago about how they're burning, I think he was a Jordanian pilot. That's not how they killed him, but let's put that aside. It was a huge production by ISIS. Until not too long ago, I used to tell my students, while talking about the theater of terror, that it's so easy, cheap, and so on doing it. You can do it with your cell phone, actually have a video. ISIS not only produces their attacks, they also produce the media coverage of their attacks, which is a new aspect when we're talking about the theater of terror. So thinking about the theater of terror and about newsworthiness, we need to take into consideration that it's the drama that glues us to the news, that makes us consume more and more information. And we have different kind of attacks here. So we started with suicide bombers. ISIS beheaded people, and they had to escalate to make it dramatic enough or newsworthy enough for us to keep on consuming it. And I guess tunnels kind of do the same thing, because as we heard before, it's creepy, it's threatening. We all feel unsafe in our house knowing that a tunnel can be in the make just beneath us at any given moment. And when I say that, it's because I live up north. It can really happen at my house at any given moment. So let's talk a little bit about the two tunnel areas in Israel and see how the media reflected on it and how the different political actors reacted on it. So the first one is a map that was released by the IDF showing us tunnels in the Gaza Strip area. Look how close it is to different Israeli I don't know, settlement is not the right word, but it's not villages, it's maybe kibbutzim or something like that. So we see how close the tunnels are, and by releasing that map, it already has a cognitive impact on Israelis, knowing that it can be so close to their house. Just to give you a short sense, that's a video or a story about a video that was released, I think it was a year and a half ago. I will read the headline. this image that was causing fear among the Gaza Strip citizens. And then there's a video of a tunnel that they just found. Actually, it was raining about a year ago, and part of the dirt on the tunnel collapsed into a tunnel, and they found a new tunnel that the IDF actually already took care of it. But cognitive-wise, it makes people be so scared of the aspects of tunnels. So during Operation Protective Edge, the Gaza War of 2014, we had a lot of stories coming out about tunnels. I couldn't find it in English, so you will excuse me, but I thought it was such a great example that I couldn't miss it. There was this news story that ran all over Israeli traditional media and mostly on social media about how Hamas was actually building those tunnels in order to attack Israeli cities at Rosh Hashanah, at our New Year's event. And it became super viral. It had a major cognitive effect on Israelis, thinking about how Hamas would actually enter a lot of Israeli cities on this holiday of ours and attack people. I think people were shocked, creepy, scared, threatened, and so on. Not surprisingly, the whole tunnel in the Gaza Strip area received a lot of information, a lot of exposure, not only in Israeli media, also in traditional media and social media worldwide. Israel had also tried to use those tunnels in order to better explain its actions in the Gaza Strip during Operation Protective Edge. And also, different Israeli public diplomacy organizations were using it in order to better explain our story. We heard that it's creepy, so imagine in the middle of New York City having somebody come out from a tunnel, a terrorist come out of a tunnel, or having different, like a tunnel underneath New York. Or I really like the map one. It's kind of like the Tube in London. But instead of London, it's the Gaza underground, and there are different Israeli cities here underneath the tunnels. So trying to make people around the world better understand the Israeli narrative or Israeli story. Another framework, no. Okay. Another message that they were trying to promote was how much money does Hamas spend on those tunnels instead of building schools, hospitals, or whatever. So that's another important message, the Israeli, it's not actually the official ones, it's the unofficial ones, more civic society organizations dealing with public diplomacy. Moving up north, and as I told you, it's close to home. Here actually is my kibbutz, that's where I live, really close to tunnel number 1. Which was exposed about a year ago. So a year ago, the IDF exposed 6 tunnels on the Lebanese border and dealt with them and tried to prevent Hezbollah from using it. And the reason that they were trying to prevent Hezbollah from using it has to do with Hezbollah's psychological warfare as well as the actual threat. A year and a half prior to that exposure of the tunnels, Hezbollah actually released this video. I won't show you all of it, it's in Arabic, but they're talking about how they're going to use 6 different forces in order to conquer the whole Galil area, enter Israeli villages, kibbutzim, and so on, block Israeli roads, use missiles to hurt Israelis. And putting that together with the tunnel threat actually makes sense to a lot of Israelis up north who didn't understand how does Hezbollah going to do that, because this video also became very viral. So that actually blends in together to a bigger threat. I'll be done in a minute. Great. So looking at what happened up north about a year ago, again, a lot of exposure also in Israeli media and international media to Israel's counter activities against those tunnels. I think that it serves Israelis' public diplomacy effort in a nice way in order for them to really try to explain the threat that we're dealing with. And I will sum up with this short video released by the IDF, which I think if we talked about target audience, that speaks to two audiences at once. Israel was using cement in order to block the tunnels, and then they, no, that's not what I want to show you, but in a second. But one of the things we talked about two target audiences. Sorry about that. One of them is the Lebanese target audience, which is sheltering Hamas, according to the Israeli public diplomacy efforts. And the second is the international arena. Now, showing them that they're filling the tunnels with cement and then seeing the cement coming out of houses in southern Lebanon actually creates a very interesting image. So it is threatening to the people in south of Lebanon, showing them that Israel will act against them on one hand, and also showing the international arena and public opinion, see how the cement actually spreads all throughout this tiny village in south of Lebanon. That's something that Israel was taking pictures of. They also used like tractors and other things to try and block it, but that was an interesting way of explaining Israel's side of the story. So following rental cars and sugar, I think that my 5 cents is that today's conflict is actually, to a large extent, conflict about images. So camera is a weapon, and it is being fueled by money. Okay, thank you so much.